So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a unique video of Q&A. And this video I posted on my Facebook that, hey, ask me any questions and I'll answer them for you. I'll pick 10 questions. So I picked 10 questions, and I know this is a series that's like overdue because I started doing this, remember, like I think 4 years ago. Then just things got in the way and I just couldn't do it. So I'm like, hey, today's Friday, less work. So I'll, answer these questions. So I asked that on my Facebook. And as you know, today Saturn entered Capricorn for the next 2.5 years. And on this festive day of Saturn entering Capricorn, I wanted to show you guys the cover of my new book, Nakshatras at the Speed of Light. My experience with the nakshatras. And this is the cover. The very first time that I thought about writing this book, which was about actually a couple of years ago, I just never got around to it because I was learning. Then I started experiencing. So, when I first thought about it, this is the thing that I always wanted to do. I wanted to show constellation on this astronaut's face. So, my astronaut dreams come true in a still. For most of us, actually, it does on a still. So anyway, let's get started with this Q&A. So I picked 10 questions and I wrote them down. Actually, I took a snapshot of them. So the first question that comes is from Harish S. Nair. And Harish asked, how do you cleanse your karma backlog without taking a spiritual path? Also, the grammar is a little off. Also, when you have afflicted ninth house, finding a guru is not an easy task. Okay, so this is a good question. So this person wants to know, how can you cleanse your karmic backlog without, focusing on the spiritual path? Well, that's very simple. Just do good karma in this life. So if you build something good here, it'll quantify itself later down in your other future lives. But the thing is, just because you have an afflicted ninth house and you don't have a guru, that doesn't mean you cannot be successful in a spiritual path. I have the same thing. And what I have done is I follow, although this year I will actually meet I have a feeling it's my guru from past life, but I'll meet this person this year. But you follow a Sadguru. I'm not talking about Sadguru Chakki Vasudeva, who's this, renowned spiritual yogi. I'm talking about Sadguru is a person who has passed away, gone to the astral world, gone to maybe, even world higher than that, which is Hiranyaloka. But they leave their vibrations in this, on this plane. Many of the sage and yogis you have never even heard of died in Himalayas or in Kailash mountain. And they leave their energy in those places. So when you go meditate, you get something there. When you just walk on these places, it changes you. Or you pretty much do what I did. I created a meditation hall in my home. The entire theater room that's in this house, it's a meditation hall with all my gurus that I look up to, that I follow, that have changed me. I put them there. So I don't need to have, just because my ninth house is afflicted, doesn't mean that I cannot have a guru. I can have his or her energy around me to guide me. Trust me, that's more than enough. Okay. So karmic backlog. Now, about the karmic backlog, how do you clear your karmic backlog? Simple. Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga was specifically given by Babaji to clear your past life backlog and send karma. So you distinguish all the negative and bad things. And you start to pretty much become free of things so you can ascend. So your soul can go from Shushumna Nadi, Usually a soul goes through anus when we die. That means you are to come back. But when the soul shoots up through the brain, it's going to a different higher world. It's still not God realized. It's probably still not moksha. You go to ascend to a higher world. Then there you do more spiritual practices. Because look, if there's a subtle body of ours, which is a soul, spirit, ghost, and let's say once you die, you have an astral body. Think about it. What if that astral body itself has a soul also? So then you have to ascend from there. Then that level may have that soul that ascend to the higher level. So either you can do that, okay, to clear up your backlogs and previous karmas by doing Kriya Yoga, or simply, if you read the Upanishads, which I'm kind of now in love with, simply a person who chants Om in meditation can find their salvation. In Upanishads it says, the lower knowledge is of the Vedas, astronomy, science and all, mathematics and all. They actually consider that as a lower knowledge. Higher knowledge is what you get by your observation, by realizing the ultimate supreme. That's the main knowledge that you get. And there's a quote in Upanishads in the beginning by the king of death, which I guess it's Yama, saying that those who do not have knowledge are in darkness. So when you don't have knowledge, you're in darkness. Then he says those who have knowledge are even in more darkness. So that means the more we learn, the more ignorant we become. Why? Because if you go to a medical student, medical surgeon, you go to a scientist, even that's a Neil deGrasse Tyson, you go to a regular mathematician, and you try to talk to them about God, spirituality, higher worlds, different dimensions, Kundalini awakening, they'll be like, listen, this is a waste of my time. I don't believe in this nonsense, this pseudoscience. So you see what's happening. The more knowledge they're gaining, the more they're actually progressing backwards. Only a few who do that, kind of like Einstein, Tesla. They're the ones who realize that there's something bigger than what I'm doing. And once I use something that's something bigger than me, I understand the whole thing. Okay? So that's your answer to your question. The second one, what is Vrinchi Yoga and its effect? Have heard least about it. Okay, so Vrinchi Yoga is a yoga that occurs when Jupiter and Saturn are in Kendra and the fifth lord is in Kendra or Trikon with source of strength. So many people I've seen who have this yoga, but they're just regular people. They're not interested in following spirituality hardcore. So what you have to do, you have to not only see this alignment of Jupiter, Saturn in Kendra, fifth lord in Kendra or Trikon, but they have to have strength. So let's say if Jupiter is in Kendra in the sign of Gemini. Let's say Saturn is in Kendra, sitting in the sign of Aries. And fifth lord is in the ninth house, fourth house, in some random sign. Fine. You have this alignment of the yoga. Then you should ask yourself, always ask yourself, forget even this yoga. Anytime you look at a chart or a planet that you're judging, ask yourself this. What is the source of strength for this planet? And how many sources of strength did this planet have? Perhaps this planet, even though it's in a neutral sign, debilitated sign, may be causing a Raj Yoga, Dhan Yoga, maybe causing a, Chandra Adi Yoga, it's causing a Mukhutta Yoga. Then you look at Navamsha. So Navamsha is if both Jupiter, Saturn, and the fifth lord are in their own sign, exaltation, okay, hemmed by benefics, then this yoga actually works. Otherwise, it's like bullet and a gun. The birth chart is the gun. So you have the gun, you've got the yoga. But to have that work, you need the bullet, which is in Navamsha. And many other may even say, look at Dvadasamsha, look at Drikna and this and that. But again, things just keep getting deeper and deeper and more complicated. I'm telling you, last night I was talking to Togi till 2 a.m. about something I was analyzing with nakshatras and swimming, like especially with Michael Phelps' chart, and I felt defeated in my head. I'm like, I would have failed on this chart if somebody gave it to me. And then we were talking, we discovered something profound. When I was writing my book, Nakshatras at the Speed of Light, I discovered something profound with nakshatras, and especially the opposite nakshatra, and it just kind of opened up the world to me. So in a way, you must lose before you can succeed, you know. So that's it. Then Manisha KM asks, how do you strengthen your relationship with your mother or parents in general? Okay. So if let's say you have a bad relationship with mother and father, and there are 20, 30 different techniques to go with this. The one thing is that what represents the mother and father mainly is the sun and moon, right? And it's the ninth lord and the fourth lord. So and this is where you have to actually know the nakshatras. What are the nakshatras? What are the symbolism of nakshatras? So let's say, for example, and this is why I said there's like 20, 30, 40 different things you have to understand to improve things. But let's say your ninth lord of father is in Uttarashada Nakshatra. And the way your sun and your ninth lord are is just, the relationship is like, you're a child and you've got Yama in front of you. Because you have to look at which one of the four rishis your parents are falling into. I think it's Ganesha, Yama, Durvasa, and somebody else. So what happens is, you will notice that when you have a bad relationship with your father, with this Saturn in Uttarashada, your teeth will always hurt. Or if your teeth are in bad condition, your relationship may suffer with the father. So when you take care of your teeth, things improve. Let's say you draw the nakshatra lord of ninth lord nakshatra. That starts activating in a positive way your ninth house related themes and the lord that controls it. And the most simplest thing that people say, oh, well, touch your feet of your parents, take care of them no matter what. And it's easier said than done, because we all have ego. Even as children, we have ego. When they say something to us that hurts us, we say something back, or we don't want to do these things. So if you want to not go into that complete dharmic ideology of how to love your parents and improve your relationship, go on to these things. But sometimes what happens is, a bad relationship must be dealt with. Because perhaps your father or mother are your worst enemy from past life. Maybe you had them killed when you were some mob boss in past life. You murdered them. So now they're simply coming back to pay that karma off. And if you ask a higher spiritual yogi or a person, they'll be like, no matter what, I'll still love them. And I'll keep serving them because I know of what I did to them in past life. So they have the right to treat me badly as a child, as their son or as their daughter. So, and most of us are not at that type of a consciousness level. So we have to use these small little techniques to improve the conditions within our home, and especially to improve relationships with the parents. Take a photograph of you and your parents together. Put that photograph in southwest corner of your home and put it in a yellow frame. And put a yellow vase next to it and a yellow heart. And make sure there's no plants in southwest area, because southwest area, when you have plants, it breaks the relationship. Why? Because plants have the ability to root themselves in the ground and they spread. That means they're breaking the ground. So remove the plants to southeast. And this can be with anybody, not just parents. Whether it's your best friend, whether it's your husband, your spouse, once you do this, things start improving. And obviously, you have to make sure if there's fire element there. Let's say you have red walls or blue, black, or green color dominating in Southwest, you got to remove those colors. They will definitely bring, just disastrous relationship with everybody in the family. And when I thought about this, back in our house in California, my mom had put bunch of plants. I still remember where all those plants were inside the house. And when I looked at it through Google Map and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, that was a southwest direction. No wonder things were just disastrous. So that's one easy way. Um, then Ashrut Abhinandan Jain asks the biggest advantage and disadvantage of being an astrologer. Of being an astrologer. Okay. Well, the biggest advantage is you start following a spiritual path, being an astrologer, because you start to unravel and see that, boy, there is something called previous birth. There is something called paying back karma. And what happens is, as an astrologer, you start improving yourself. Like if you guys noticed me back in 2009, 2010, when I used to make videos, I used to take everything just very lightly. I used to just just be a young, lion-hearted type person who thinks he can achieve anything he wants. But now at this stage, as I kept learning and learning and learning and learning, get deeper in astrology, the enthusiasm of astrology kind of decreases and enthusiasm for God realization increases. It increases, like for example, and I don't want to make a show of this, but I mean, I only eat like even meat 5% or 10% of the time in a month. My desire has gone. It's not like I forced myself, oh no, I don't want to eat meat, it's bad, it's this. It's just the desire goes away. And the only thing that I still love eating is just wild game meat, like buck or elk or venison, especially when they're like hunted, because they're, not in a slaughterhouse, not in a bad condition. They're in their natural environment and they leave. So that I feel much happier eating that. Second, even with, I actually was discussing this with Dr. Pai on text message. Like, Dr. Pai, ever since you guys left in December, I have like no interest in drinking. Even then, I wasn't even drinking as much. My interest has just gone. This bar that you see in the back, it's just there for guests and it's for show. So when any of my friends come in, somebody comes in, hey, you want to drink? Get it. But I have not touched that thing in like a month. And again, this is not to show up because, hey, I have no problem drinking. If my desire is there, I want to drink. But the thing is, my interest and desire is not there. And the reason why it went away, especially with the non-veg thing, because I have such great food here in Texas. See, when you're around great vegetarian food, especially like South Indian food, which is light, which is, not so heavy on your stomach, and it's vegetarian. And because most people think Indian food is unhealthy because all they see is like chicken makhani and paneer makhani and naan, and all these things are bad for your digestive system. This is more like junk food that you eat on your weekend, with your family. Daily basis, I just love eating South Indian light dishes. I just feel great. So that's one of the biggest advantages of being an astrologer. You get to understand life. Now, what is the biggest disadvantage? The biggest disadvantage is, number one, it can drive you crazy. It can drive you mad. I feel like somehow because of all these sadgurus that I have stayed insane, because when some problem hits you and you can't figure it out, or why did I not get this particular analysis right, it drives you mad. You're looking at that chart, you're looking at what the person said, and you're thinking, why did it go bad? What happened here? What happened there? Well, what if this happened and that happened? I would have done this. It can drive you insane and mad. And the other disadvantage of being an astrologer is obviously the ridicule you may get. Because remember, best of the best fail. So if you're a scientist, people respect you because you can easily prove something over and over again. With astrology, it's like we're all here at this little surface. We're all dwelling at the surface, while astrology is like going this deep for you to really perfect it and become the Bhrigu of, your generation. So in such case, you face that, and the other disadvantage is this is not something everybody can follow and still have a normalcy in life. What astrology somehow activates something where if you are a party goer, if you're this or that, it just starts bringing more chaos unless you change within, unless you find divinity within. If you don't, it'll kick your ass. And also, what happens with astrology, and this is one of the other questions that I'm going to segue into, is this. Let me see. Okay, so the question you asked about the disadvantage, and the last question is by Himanshu Garg. Said, please tell us how we can protect ourselves from taking bad energies coming from us uh, while we're reading somebody else's chart. So that's a big thing. So your question kind of segues into the other question that I was going to answer is, once you open up yourself to occult and astrology, you start getting affected. Because there are some charts when I see, and I automatically know, I'm like, even if I refund this person is going to curse at me. If I predict for this person, it will not happen, they will curse at me. And I see that because the way if the chart is heavy, your heart starts to palpitate. The palpitation starts happening. You feel like this panic coming inside you, and you're wondering what is happening. Why is it happening? Because the chart is so heavy that because the key to the chart, what you're looking at, and now it starts talking to you. That, oh, you want to talk to me? Come on, I'll talk to you. Here, take my heaviness. So the disadvantage is you can be affected by charts. By looking at other people's charts, it'll start affecting you. Astrologers, sometimes can even take on some certain karmas of people when they do certain type of readings. So it's always important to cleanse yourself. And how do you cleanse yourself? Well, number one, I feel utterly 110%, 10% extra, confident that because of the fact that I have these gurus, that I meditate there, I do my prayers there, I do my yogas there, I know I'm protected. But also I do sage. I sage my office, my computer, sage myself. Like, especially my wife can see it. My wife is a bit of a psychic, actually. So when I come in the room, she's like, okay, you just bought couple of things with you in the room. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you brought something in. Were you just looking at somebody's chart? And then I realized, oh my God, I was just looking at this chart and I was just feeling this weirdness. Like, just I didn't want to do the chart. But then I did it. And I have given money back, and then they would like come back and curse, like, you wasted this. I waited all this time for this reading and you do this and you do that. It happens. Certain charts cannot be predicted on. And if you predict it on them, you get that repercussion on you. So it's always good to cleanse yourself. Do the yoga, you do the meditation, sage yourself, clear your energy. So absolutely, once you open up, and then because of this, there's certain things that I won't discuss that has happened to me. And Togi was there too. When these things have happened, and you open up yourself to things, you open up yourself to energies, it's like you become this firelight. So all the mosquitoes and all the bugs bug zapper. You become like a bug zapper. They all come to you. So there's certain experiences that I've dealt with that now for me it's normal. If I see something, if I see like an apparition or something, or all that for me. Like, oh, interesting. Who is this? Who is this person? But once you first deal with it, you're freaked out. You're like, what? Why? What am I getting myself into? So yeah, I mean, it's a world that not it's not really for everybody. Then remedies for Moon, Saturn, Mars conjunction in the sixth house of Aries. So this is the reason why I picked this particular individualized thing, because I have seen whenever malefic planets, especially in Aries, are in the sixth or eighth house of your birth or dasamsha, a person will self mutilate themselves, or will have self-inflicted wounds on them, whether it's through needles, whether it's through just cutting themselves out of anger, out of depression, because this conjunction of Moon, Saturn, Mars can literally even bring bipolarism, split personality. And because Aries is the physical self, us, we are the one hurting ourselves. We are the one damaging our own self. So, um, the remedies for this. Well, I can't. When it comes to the remedy of this, depends. If your ascendant, or I mean, if this Aries is happening in Ashwini Nakshatra, if it's happening in Bharani Nakshatra or Kritika Nakshatra, it'll all have those different type of scenarios happening, for the person. So if, let's say, it's in Bharani, you wanna kind of like pay respects to Yama. If it's in Ashwini, okay, wherever Ketu is placed, ask that person for help. So if this conjunction happens in Ashwini, or especially Moon is in Ashwini, and Ketu sitting in, let's say, the seventh house, either ask your maternal grandmother or your spouse, listen, I need help. What can I do to help this mental garbage I have in me? What can I do to get rid of this anger that I have in me? And they'll suggest, like, listen, I think you should do yoga. Go take yoga classes. Even if you don't believe it, even if it does not work, because they said it, it'll work. If it's in Kritika, obviously one important thing is you gotta start doing what is it called, dhuni, which is pretty much a fire yagna made of in a pit. Like, in India, people make a pit, they start the fire, and they look at the fire silently and quietly. You can chant Gayatri Mantra inside, you can say Om inside. Fire helps. And also take a fruit, if it's in Kritika, take a fruit like antelope, or what am I calling antelope? What is it called? Watermelon, or anything, any fruit or vegetable, and take a knife and cut it in half. And that's it. If you want to eat it, you can eat it, but just cut it in half once. It breaks away this tension in your conjunction. But pay attention to the moon. Moon nakshatra in this conjunction is the one you want to pay attention to. So then 5 planets committed together. So when you have a conjunction of 4 planets, 5 planets, 6 planets, it's a cluster, right? And usually it can be, if it's especially connected with the 8th lord, can be sannyasa yoga, meaning a person just wants to give up on everything and go towards a higher knowledge. But one of the ways to understand this is that when you see a cluster in a person's chart, that particular area of their life will dominate them throughout their life. So if it's in the 5th house, something with children will always be their main concern, always be their main focus, always be their main obsession. And especially you wanna, and I show this trick in my academy, on Maga Vedic Astrology Academy, and I actually announced my next course, which will start in February, Planets Through Nakshatras. But on my other Vedic Astrology Simplified, I show this chart of how to look at a chart from just the Cancer or Leo ascendant. So even if you don't know somebody's time of birth, just look at Leo or Cancer ascendant. There's certain ways, certain trick to do that. And from there, you can assess, like, okay, this 5 planetary conjunction is happening in the 4th house by making Cancer the ascendant. So from Cancer ascendant, all these planets go into the fourth house in Libra. So there's a strong karma related to home and mother that one will dealt with. And then when you know the nakshatras and you see that how many planets are maybe combust, if sun is there, they all could be combust. So that will have a different scenario in it. So there's like 20 methods for one question. Okay. So it's hard to answer all of these in such a manner that it can, it's not like a one trick for all thing. Then it says, does sharing astrological information from a chart with teens encourages or limits them? Which is better, to share or without the information? So pretty much what you're trying to say is that, is it good to share the astrological information with your teenage son or daughter to help them? Well, that depends. Are you going to be pessimistic about their chart, or are you going to be optimistic about their chart? So even if you see all the bad yogas, all the bad dashas that are in their chart, well, that's really not a teenage mind. Is not the mind that can, most of them are not where they can comprehend the spiritual knowledge and be like, oh, this is my karma. Okay, I'll start doing well now. You tell them something bad, they will rebel against you and do more of those things that you showed them. So if you want to show them, you show them the potential of the chart. Like if you see them, they're not going to study. Okay. But you see the fact that they are going to do very well with like technical electrical work. Well, show them that you like electrical technical work, right? Yeah, I enjoy doing this. Well, why don't we get you more tools? Why don't we do this? That's all it is. Because most of the time, if you think that showing them their flaws is going to improve them, most teenagers will just not even care for what you're saying with astrology. Then, any remedies for debilitated moon? This was actually my best question in a way. So, best remedy for debilitated moon is to ask yourself a question: is the moon debilitated in Scorpio? That's the first thing you should ask. Why do you think the moon is debilitated in Scorpio? Because you read it in Bharat Prasha Horasastra, you read it in some article or bunch of articles or videos on, on the internet. Because let me tell you, some of the most successful people that I've seen have moon in Scorpio, debilitated. Now, if it's at like just the 3 degrees of Scorpio where it's truly debilitated, sure, there would be some definite karma that a person may deal with. But remember, according to even the classics, there's a degree point where a planet is debilitated. Otherwise, it's just in Scorpio. Like especially if you have, let's say, moon in Jyeshtha in Scorpio, you're eventually going to become the eldest in your profession and in your family. People will start respecting you like the eldest. People will respect you in your workspace because they are like, let's go to this person. They will know what we need to do for this. So the remedy is that there's no remedy, because you gotta ask yourself, why is the moon debilitated? What makes the moon debilitated in Scorpio? You can have a yogi with moon in Scorpio. You can have a serial killer with moon in Scorpio. So why is it good or bad? Again, impact of the other planets, impact of the other grahas on the moon. That's all. So don't think that moon is debilitated in Scorpio. That's just hogwash. Then the last question is by Shivam Dang. Does eating meat or drinking alcohol give bad effect to your planets or horoscope? That depends. Of course it can. For some people, if you eat meat and you smoke or you drink, you get fame and you get money. For some people, you start eating meat, your relationship will suddenly evaporate with people, or especially wherever the certain planetary alignments are placed. Like if you start eating meat, suddenly your relationship with the mother just starts going bad. You start drinking. Your children start suffering in their health. So these things are, but again, they're like 80, 90 combinations, and I haven't even come across all these combinations for me to even tell you. But I do know that, yes, if you, like example for me, and I've said this even before, like when I started smoking cigars, boy, my life just completely shot up. Whenever I drink, shoots up. When I smoke, and especially when I smoke, my astrological intuition goes up. And that's why I kind of don't like doing that when I'm doing astrology, because I'm like, then it's going to become a crutch for me to only smoke cigar. I only smoke cigar once a day. At night when I'm done with my work and I want to watch some movies, some documentaries, some horror movie, I just take the cigar. Or sometimes on weekend I do it twice a day in like morning and evening. I enjoy it. That's one thing I still have interest in. Maybe next year I won't have interest in that, but um, for me, I mean, I've been eating meat all my life, and drinking all my life. But but once I studied that, I'm like, oh, this is why this has happened to me always. Whenever I eat meat, this would happen. When I drink, this happens. When I smoke, this happens. But for some people, it's reverse. It can bring about disastrous results. So there's no like this is not a one thumb remedy. Every thumbprint is different. Remember, every chart is different. Every thumbprint, it's like a thumbprint. No two thumbprints or fingerprints are alike. So these are my answers to your questions. And I only pick the questions that I know the answer to. If I don't know the answer to what you're asking, I'm not going to pick it. It's like, I don't want to give false information. Okay. So anyway, guys, if you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to know where your astrological placements are, where all your planets are placed, if you have a Vrinci Yoga, if you have a debilitated moon, all of these things, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, consultations, and a link to my academy, Vedic Astrology Academy, where I teach everything from A through Z of astrology, and also bringing a new course on planets through Nakshatra soon. Bye-bye.